My parents told me I was financially on my own, then purchased my sister a condo for her 21st. I quietly relocated to another state. For years later, my thesis made national headlines, and they discovered it on Facebook like everyone else. I never thought a single family meeting could rewrite my entire future. But the day my parents told me I was on my own for college, I knew my life would never be the same. And I had no idea just how much it would cost them in the end. The air in my dad's study felt thick, heavy with unspoken expectations. My mom sat in her usual leather chair by the window, her face a mask I'd learned to dread. I could hear my younger sister, Chloe's, TV blaring from the family room, oblivious to the seismic shift about to hit my world. It was 3 weeks before my 18th birthday when he called me in. "Olivia," he said, folding his hands on his mahogany desk, "we need to discuss your college plans." I'd poured my heart into this. New York University was my dream, environmental science my passion. Every AP class, every weekend at the local conservation center, every scholarship application, it was all for this moment. Then, my mother dropped the bomb. "We've decided you'll need to fund your own education." No gentle lead-in, no cushioning. Just cold, hard words, like she was reading the morning weather report. It didn't even register. Not at first. My parents weren't rich, but they were comfortable. Upper middle class, rock solid. My dad managed a regional bank. My mom sold pharmaceuticals. Their house was paid off. They drove new cars every 3 years. We took Caribbean vacations twice a year, as long as I could remember. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "You're nearly an adult," my dad explained, his voice that patronizingly reasonable tone he probably used with loan applicants. "It's time you learned responsibility. We believe in teaching our children independence." My younger sister, Chloe, was 14 then. Her TV was loud enough that I could hear the canned laughter through the walls. "But Chloe?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. My mother's jaw tightened. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This conversation is about you." I walked out of that study feeling hollowed out, like someone had reached in and scooped everything right out of me. That night, I lay awake, meticulously recalculating my entire future. My scholarships would cover maybe 60% of tuition at a state school. I'd need loans for everything else, living expenses, books, food, the endless costs of being a college student. New York University vanished from my possibilities. Instead, I enrolled at the University of Central Florida, chose the cheapest meal plan, and landed a work-study gig in the library that started freshman year. Those 4 years are a blur now. I worked 25 hours a week during semesters, full-time every summer. Ramen became a staple. My freshman roommate, Jessica, would come back from winter break laden with shopping bags from stores I couldn't even afford to browse. I came back with an extra ache in my shoulders from the factory job I'd worked on the overnight shift. It paid an extra $2 an hour. I went home maybe 3 times those 4 years. Each visit felt emptier than the last. My parents asked superficial questions about my classes, but never seemed truly interested. They never asked about my research assistantship or the environmental advocacy group I helped found. They never seemed to notice how utterly exhausted I looked. Everything crystallized during spring break of my junior year. I'd just driven 6 hours in my beat-up Honda Civic, the check engine light glowing ominously the whole way. I couldn't afford to fix it. Chloe was planning her high school graduation party. The dining room table was buried under catalogs and Pinterest printouts. My mom had hired an event planner. "We're thinking a garden party theme," she said, barely glancing up as I walked in. "With those adorable mason jar centerpieces." I stood there, duffel bag in hand, wearing jeans I'd owned since high school. Chloe's outfit probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "How much is this party costing?" I asked. My dad looked up from his newspaper. "That's not really your concern, Olivia." "Ballpark, 12,000, my mom chirped. But Chloe only graduates high school once. It's a milestone worth celebrating properly. $12,000. I'd worked 40-hour weeks the previous summer for $10 an hour, clearing about $14,000 before taxes for 3 months of physical labor that left me with a back injury I couldn't afford to treat. That money had gone straight to tuition and rent. Sounds nice, I managed. Nobody asked how I was paying for school. Nobody asked about my grades, my research, the paper I was co-authoring with Dr. Evans that was about to be published. Nobody asked if I needed anything, if I was eating enough, if I was okay. Chloe showed me fabric swatches for tablecloths. I nodded and smiled, feeling like I was watching my family through bulletproof glass. That Sunday, before I left, my dad handed me a card. Inside was a $50 Visa gift card. For gas money, he said. $50 for gas, after spending $12,000 on a party for my sister. I took it, because I desperately needed it. That might have been the moment I hated myself the most. Meanwhile, Chloe blossomed into the family princess. I watched it happen through the window of occasional visits and obligatory FaceTime calls. She got a new Honda Accord for her 16th birthday, not a used car like the one I bought myself with saved paychecks, but a brand new one with a bow on top. She went on a school trip to Europe that cost $4,000. Designer homecoming dresses, professional photographs, a sweet 16 party at a country club. She's at such a formative age, my mother explained once, when I made the mistake of commenting. These experiences matter. I wanted to ask if my formative years had mattered. Instead, I swallowed the question and changed the subject. The real breaking point came during Chloe's senior year of college. I was finishing my master's degree then, having been accepted into an accelerated program. I was 25. Chloe had just turned 21. I found out about the condo through Instagram. Chloe posted photos of her birthday surprise, captioned, "Best parents ever. Can't believe this gorgeous downtown condo is all mine." The picture showed a modern 2-bedroom apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, granite countertops, a view of the city skyline. I sat in my shared graduate housing unit, staring at my phone screen while my roommate's boyfriend argued with her through the paper-thin walls. The apartment I split with 2 other grad students cost $700 monthly for my share. I'd been eating peanut butter sandwiches every day to save money for an upcoming academic conference. My hands shook as I scrolled through the photos: hardwood floors, stainless steel appliances, a bathroom with a rainfall shower head. Comments flooded in from Chloe's friends, hearts and fire emojis, endless congratulations. I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring. "Did you buy Chloe a condo?" I asked, no greeting, just the question. A pause. "It's an investment property, Olivia. We're thinking long-term here." "An investment property?" I repeated the words, tasting their bitterness. The rental market in her college town is very strong. After she graduates, she can rent it out. It's smart financial planning. "I lived in a place with mold in the bathroom," I said, my voice flat. "I worked overnight shifts. I took out $40,000 in loans." "And you're better for it," my mother replied. "Look how driven you are. How accomplished. We did you a favor." "Really?" Something snapped inside me then. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet breaking, like an overstressed cable finally giving way. "Congratulations on the investment," I said, and hung up. 3 months later, I applied to PhD programs. I cast my net wide, but I was strategic. I targeted schools known for strong environmental science departments with faculty working in urban ecology. I needed full funding. I needed stipends. I needed geographic distance. The University of Oregon accepted me with a full ride and a teaching assistantship. Austin was 2,300 miles from my parents' house in Georgia. I could live with that distance. Actually, I could thrive with it. I didn't tell them I was moving until 2 weeks before I left. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes. Oregon. That's quite far, my father said. Great opportunity, I replied. Well, send us your new address when you're settled. I never did. The thing about cutting people off isn't that it happens all at once. It's gradual. Texts go unanswered for hours, then days, then weeks. Phone calls get sent to voicemail. Holiday visits get replaced with vague excuses about research deadlines and teaching responsibilities. Eventually, they stop reaching out as frequently. The silence becomes comfortable for everyone involved. Moving to Austin was like learning to breathe again. I found an apartment in a converted warehouse building, sharing space with 2 other graduate students. Maya studied molecular biology and made incredible curry. James was in the philosophy department and played guitar badly, but enthusiastically, on Friday nights. We were all broke, all ambitious, all building something from nothing. My room was barely big enough for a bed and a desk, but it had a window that looked out onto a community garden. I'd wake up early, watch people tending their plots before work, and feel something close to peace. The PhD program was brutal, in the best way. Dr. Evans expected excellence, but provided the support to achieve it. She fought for my research funding, connected me with other scientists, challenged my assumptions without crushing my confidence. She was what a mentor should be, someone invested in my success because she believed in the work, not because of what it might reflect on her. During my first year, at a departmental holiday party, Dr. Evans pulled me aside, glass of wine in hand. You work harder than anyone I've supervised in 20 years, she said. But you also work like someone who's afraid to stop. I must have looked startled because she laughed. I'm not criticizing. I recognize it because I was the same way at your age. Just make sure you're running towards something, not just away from something. The research is better when it comes from passion rather than proving a point. Her words stuck with me. Was I trying to prove something? Absolutely. But the deeper I got into the research, the more I realized it had stopped being about my parents and started being about the work itself. The contamination patterns I was uncovering, the predictive models I was building, they mattered beyond my personal vendetta against being underestimated. I started sleeping better, making friends, going to trivia nights and weekend hikes in the hill country, building a life that felt like mine instead of a constant reaction to what I'd been denied. I threw myself into my research with the single-minded focus of someone who had something to prove. My dissertation focused on bioaccumulation of microplastics in urban waterways. Specifically, I studied how different types of industrial runoff in post-industrial cities created hotspots of contamination that traditional testing methods missed. My advisor, Dr. Patricia Evans, was a force of nature. She published groundbreaking work on environmental toxicology and had connections throughout the field. She saw something in my research early on. This methodology you've developed, she said during one of our weekly meetings in my second year, the way you're using machine learning to predict contamination patterns from historical industrial data, Olivia, this could change how cities approach waterway restoration. I'd been working 16-hour days, pulling samples from the Colorado River at odd hours, running endless analyses in the lab, coding algorithms until my eyes burned. The research became more than just work. It became proof. Proof that I could succeed despite everything. Proof that I didn't need their money or their support or their validation. By my third year, I had preliminary results that startled even Dr. Evans. We'd identified contamination sources in Austin's waterways that city environmental assessments had completely missed. We could predict with 87% accuracy where microplastic accumulation would be highest based on industrial patterns from the 1970s and 80s. You need to publish this, Dr. Evans insisted, not just in academic journals. This has policy implications. I expanded the research to include 3 more post-industrial cities, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Buffalo. The patterns held. We could essentially create maps of invisible pollution based on decades of old industrial activity, and our predictions matched current testing with remarkable accuracy. The implications were staggering. Cities could identify and prioritize cleanup efforts. Public health officials could issue better fish consumption advisories. Urban planners could factor this data into redevelopment projects. The week before my defense, I barely slept. I ran through every possible question, every potential weakness, every critique. Maya forced me to eat actual meals. James banned me from the apartment after midnight so I'd sleep instead of obsessing over PowerPoint slides. Dr. Evans met with me the morning of the defense. "You're ready," she said simply. "This research is solid. Your methodology is sound. You know this material better than anyone in that room. Trust yourself." I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But another part, the part that had spent years being told I was on my own, that I needed to prove myself worthy of basic support, whispered that it wasn't enough, that I wasn't enough. Walking into that defense felt like walking toward a cliff edge. I defended my dissertation on a rainy Thursday in April, for years after starting the PhD. My committee included Dr. Evans and 3 other faculty members. The defense lasted 2 hours. Their questions were tough, probing, testing the limits. When I finished, they asked me to step outside. I stood in the hallway, watching rain streak down the windows, feeling nothing. Numbness had become my default state somewhere along the way. Dr. Evans opened the door 5 minutes later, grinning. "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes." The title sounded foreign. Dr. Olivia Hayes. I'd done it. I'd funded my own education through 2 degrees, worked jobs that left me exhausted and broke, eaten more instant noodles than any human should consume, and I'd still managed to produce research that my committee called paradigm shifting. "The committee wants you to know this is some of the most important environmental research to come out of this department in 20 years, Dr. Evans continued. "We're fast-tracking publication. I've already reached out to contacts at the EPA and several environmental advocacy groups." Things moved quickly after that. The paper was published in Environmental Science and Technology about 5 months after my defense. Dr. Evans had been right about the policy implications. Within weeks, I was fielding calls from city environmental departments, congressional staffers, major environmental organizations. Then the media picked it up. It started with Science Daily, then expanded to articles in the Washington Post and New York Times science sections. The story had everything journalists loved: young researcher, innovative methodology, immediate real-world applications, implications for public health in dozens of American cities. Former factory sites still poisoning urban waterways, new research shows, read one headline. Breakthrough study maps invisible water contamination in American cities, announced another. My university's PR department went into overdrive. They set up interviews, coordinated photoshoots, drafted press releases. My face appeared on the university homepage. Local news stations in Austin requested interviews. National environmental groups invited me to speak at conferences. The attention was surreal. I'd spent years being invisible, working jobs where I was just another anonymous body, studying in libraries where no one knew my name or cared about my research. Suddenly, people wanted to hear what I had to say. My inbox flooded. Graduate students asked about my methodology. City officials requested consultations. Other researchers wanted to collaborate. A producer from a science podcast reached out about an interview. It was overwhelming and validating in equal measure. One email stood out. It came from a Dr. Emily Reed, who worked for the California Environmental Protection Agency. "Your research," she wrote, "is exactly what we needed to push through funding for cleanup projects that have been stalled for years. Politicians respond to data like this. You've given us ammunition to actually make change happen. Thank you." I read that email 3 times, sitting in my apartment with tears streaming down my face. This was why I'd done it. Not for recognition or revenge or proving anything to my parents. For this. For making something that mattered. Maya knocked on my door that evening with a bottle of cheap champagne. "We're celebrating," she announced. "You're changing the world and I live with you, which basically makes me famous by association." We sat on the fire escape, drinking champagne from coffee mugs, watching the sun set over the Austin skyline. James joined us with his guitar, and for once, he played something that actually sounded good. "You know what's wild?" Maya said. "You did all this while working your butt off just to survive. Imagine what you'll do now that you don't have to." The thought hadn't occurred to me. I'd been in survival mode for so long that the idea of actually thriving felt foreign. 3 weeks after the New York Times article, I gave a presentation at a national environmental policy conference in Chicago. The room held maybe 300 people, city officials, federal regulators, environmental advocates, academic researchers. I walked them through the methodology, showed maps of contamination hotspots, explained the public health implications. During the Q&A, a woman from the Buffalo Department of Public Health stood up. "Your research identified 17 high contamination sites in our waterways that we'd never flagged as priorities," she said. "We're already reallocating budget to begin testing and remediation. How soon can you consult on our sampling protocol?" That's when it truly hit me. This wasn't just academic work that would sit in journals. This was going to change things. Real things, in real cities, for real people. The conference organizers posted photos on social media, professional shots of me presenting, speaking into the microphone, pointing to data visualizations. The university shared them. Environmental organizations shared them. Science journalists shared them. One of those photos eventually made its way to Facebook, posted by the Environmental Defense Fund with a caption, "Dr. Olivia Hayes presents groundbreaking research on urban water contamination at the National Environmental Policy Conference." Her innovative methodology is already influencing cleanup efforts in cities across America. I didn't see it immediately. I'd barely checked Facebook in years. The platform felt like a relic from a past life. But other people saw it. Lots of people. My phone started buzzing around 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my apartment, finally unpacked after the Chicago trip, eating Thai takeout and reviewing notes for a consulting project with St. Louis's environmental department. The first text came from my cousin Sarah, someone I hadn't spoken to in probably 3 years. "Holy, Olivia. Saw your presentation stuff online. That's incredible." Then my former college roommate, "You're famous. Just saw you on EDF's page." Then people I'd gone to high school with, people I'd worked with at various jobs, former classmates from the University of Central Florida. People crawling out of the woodwork to congratulate me on research they didn't understand, but that looked impressive in photographs. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Another unknown number. The third call came from a number I did recognize, even though I'd deleted the contact years ago. My mother. I stared at the screen, watching it buzz in my hand. Part of me wanted to answer. Some small, pathetic part that still remembered being a kid who wanted her parents to be proud of her. But the larger part, the part that had built itself from scratch over the past 11 years, felt nothing but cold amusement. I let it go to voicemail. She called back immediately. I declined the call. A text came through. "Olivia, we just saw the news about your research. This is incredible. We had no idea you were doing such important work. Call us, please." Then my father, "Very proud of you. Would love to catch up and hear about everything." Then Chloe, "OMG, you're like actually famous. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Why didn't you tell us about any of this?" I set the phone down and returned to my Thai food. It had gone lukewarm. More texts rolled in over the next hour. My mother sent 3 more messages, each progressively more insistent. My father called twice more. Chloe sent Instagram DMs. Even my Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, sent a message. Your mother is beside herself. Please call her. The voicemail my mother left was particularly rich. Olivia, I don't understand why you're not answering. We're your parents. We deserve to know what's happening in your life. This is huge news and we had to find out through Facebook like we're strangers. Please call us back so we can properly congratulate you. I listened to it twice, marveling at the audacity. We deserve to know what's happening in your life. As if the past 8 years hadn't been a clear demonstration that my life was no longer their concern. Dr. Evans called the next morning with more good news. The EPA wanted me to consult on developing new guidelines. A major environmental litigation firm had reached out. 2 different universities had made preliminary contact about faculty positions. You're going to have your pick of opportunities, she said. This research is making waves in exactly the right circles. That afternoon, my parents showed up at my apartment. I don't know how they got my address. I'd never given it to them. Maybe they called the university. Maybe they found some old piece of mail. Maybe Chloe did some Instagram detective work. It didn't particularly matter. I saw them through the window, pulling up in my dad's Lexus. My mother got out first, smoothing her blouse. My father followed, looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen before. I waited until they knocked. Olivia, my mother's voice carried that forced brightness she used with difficult clients. Sweetheart, why haven't you returned our calls? I've been busy, I said, not moving from the doorway. Can we come in? My father asked. We've driven a long way. The audacity of that statement. They'd driven from Georgia to Austin without asking if I wanted to see them, then presented it as some kind of sacrifice I should appreciate. Actually, I have a meeting in 30 minutes, I lied smoothly. What do you need? My mother's smile faltered. We wanted to congratulate you in person. What you've accomplished is remarkable. We saw all the articles, the presentations, you saw Facebook posts, I corrected. Well, yes, but then we looked into it more. Olivia, you're consulting with the EPA. That's extraordinary. My father stepped forward, his voice taking on a tone of pride that felt like sandpaper against my skin. We always knew you were capable of great things. Did you? The question hung in the air. My mother glanced at my father. Of course we did, she said. You were always so driven, so focused. It's wonderful to see that paying off. Thanks to the character we helped build, my father added. Teaching you independence, making you work for what you wanted. It clearly shaped you into someone capable of this level of achievement. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The revisionist history was so blatant, so shameless. You think this is because of you? We're not saying that, my mother backtracked quickly. We're saying we're proud of how you've turned out and we'd love to be more involved in your life again. We've missed you. Interesting timing. Olivia, don't be like that, my father said, his voice taking on that edge of disappointment I remembered so well. We're your parents. Family is important. Where was family when I was working night shifts? Where was family when I was living on ramen and choosing between textbooks and groceries? Where was family for the last 11 years while I was doing all of this? I gestured vaguely toward the laptop visible on my coffee table where a draft of my EPA consulting proposal sat open. We've already discussed this, my mother said, her voice cooling. We made the parenting decisions we thought were best. And we bought Chloe a condo. Silence. That was different, my father started. It really wasn't. But here's the thing. I don't actually care anymore. I needed you 8 years ago. I don't need you now. My mother's face flushed. You're being unreasonable. We made mistakes. Fine. We can admit that. But cutting us out entirely over financial decisions we made when you were still practically a child, I cut you out because you made it clear I wasn't a priority. The money was just the evidence. And you know what? You did me a favor. I meant it. Every word. I built this without you. Every accomplishment, every publication, every opportunity, I earned it. You don't get to show up now and claim any part of it. We're not trying to claim anything, my father said. We just want to be part of your life. You want to be associated with success. It's different. Chloe's car pulled up behind my father's Lexus. Of course she'd come, too. She got out, looking uncertain, younger than her 25 years in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. Olivia, she called out. Can we talk? Seems like everyone wants to talk today. She walked up to the door and I saw something in her face that surprised me. Guilt. I didn't know, she said quietly, about what it was like for you. I was 14 when you went to college. I didn't understand what was happening. And later, I challenged, when you posted about your condo, when you got everything handed to you while I was drowning in debt? She flinched. I thought that was just how things were. They told me you wanted independence, that you chose to do everything yourself. They lied. I know that now. She glanced at our parents. I've been thinking about it a lot since I graduated. I got a job offer last year, a good one, and Mom and Dad wanted me to turn it down. They said I should stay local, that they'd keep supporting me. And I suddenly realized that they'd never pushed me the way they pushed you. They never made me work for anything. Chloe, our mother started. I'm not finished, Chloe interrupted. Olivia, I benefited from how they mistreated you. I got everything easy because you got nothing. And I didn't question it because it was comfortable. I'm sorry for that. Of all the things I'd expected today, a genuine apology from my younger sister hadn't been on the list. I took the job, she continued. In Denver. I'm paying my own rent now. It's hard and I hate it sometimes, but I also get why you're angry. I finally get it. My father cleared his throat. This isn't about taking sides. Actually, Dad, it is, Chloe said. You guys screwed up. You played favorites, and you're only here now because Olivia's research is getting attention. If she was still struggling, you wouldn't have driven across the country. That's not fair, my mother protested. Isn't it? Chloe challenged. When's the last time you asked about her life before last week? When's the last time you called just to check in? Nobody answered. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and felt nothing but exhausted indifference. They'd gotten older. My mother's hair had more gray. My father had new lines around his eyes. They were just people, flawed people who had made choices that hurt me and who were now facing consequences they hadn't anticipated. I appreciate you driving out here, I said finally. But I don't have space in my life for rebuilding a relationship that was never actually there. You were parents by biology, but you stopped being family a long time ago. Olivia, please, my mother tried once more. Everyone makes mistakes. You can't just throw away your family. You threw me away first. You just didn't realize it until you saw someone else valuing what you dismissed. We never dismissed you, my father argued. You absolutely did. But like I said, thank you for that. I'm better off for learning early that I couldn't rely on you. I stepped back into my apartment and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them stand there for a few minutes, talking among themselves. Chloe looked back at the door once before getting in her car. My parents took longer to leave, but eventually, they did. My phone buzzed with messages throughout the evening. My mother tried guilt. My father tried reason. Chloe sent one text, I meant what I said. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I responded only to Chloe, I appreciate that. Maybe someday. The offers kept coming over the following months. I accepted a faculty position at a university in Oregon, turning down 3 other schools with better name recognition but less research freedom. I consulted with 7 different cities on environmental assessment protocols. I testified before a congressional committee about updating federal water quality standards. My research expanded. I brought on graduate students of my own. I secured grant funding. I built a lab that focused on exactly the kind of innovative environmental work I'd envisioned. I built a life I was proud of. Populated with people who chose to be there. Colleagues who respected my work. Friends who valued my company. A community that I'd created intentionally, carefully, with clear standards about what I would and wouldn't accept. My parents tried to reconcile a few more times over the first year. They sent gifts I returned. They invited me to Thanksgiving and Christmas. They sent cards for my birthday. Eventually, the attempt slowed, then stopped. Chloe and I talk occasionally now, careful, tentative conversations where we're both feeling out what kind of relationship might be possible. She's building her own life, learning the lessons I learned years earlier. I respect that journey, even if it came late. Sometimes people ask about my family. I keep it simple. We're not close. Most people don't push for details. The research continues to make an impact. Cities are changing how they assess water quality. Federal guidelines have been updated. Real contamination is being identified and cleaned up because of methodologies I developed while eating ramen in graduate housing and working through exhaustion. That matters more than any reconciliation could. I learned something important through all of this. You don't owe anyone access to your success just because they share your DNA. Family is supposed to be people who support you when you're struggling, not people who show up when you're thriving and demand recognition. My parents wanted to be proud of me when it was convenient for them. When it came with reflected glory and bragging rights and something impressive to share with their friends. But pride isn't something you can retroactively claim. You earn it by showing up, by supporting someone through the hard times, by investing in their potential before the payoff is guaranteed. They didn't do that. They chose comfort and convenience, and whatever rationale let them sleep at night after buying one daughter a condo while leaving the other one to drown. So, they found out about my success on Facebook, like everyone else. They learned about my achievements through articles and social media posts and other people's congratulations. They became spectators to a life they convinced themselves didn't need their participation. And honestly, that feels like exactly the ending this story deserved. After hearing all this, do you think family is always family, no matter what?